Everything you know is a dream, not metaphorically, not philosophically, literally. Right now, you're inside of it. Everything you've believed, everything you've called me, was never real. And the strangest part, you never even stopped to question it. But something deeper has always been there, watching, unmoving, beyond your name, beyond your body, beyond everything you think makes you, you. This is not just another idea, and once you see it, there's no going back, because the moment you question who you really are, the illusion starts to crack. Among all questions one may ask, none is more fundamental than, who am I? Unlike other inquiries, this one doesn't seek knowledge about the world. It turns attention back onto the one who is asking. It's not meant to be answered in words. It's meant to dissolve the one who is asking the question. At first, it might seem simple. You might say, I am this body, I am this mind. But take a step back. The body changes. The mind fluctuates. Thoughts come and go. So if all these things are temporary, how can they be you? This is where self-inquiry begins. And this is where everything you thought you knew begins to collapse. And if you stay with this question long enough, you might realize that the I you've always believed in never truly existed in the first place. Everything you've ever thought, every belief you've held, every story you've told yourself, it all begins with one thing, the I thought. This is the very first thought that comes up in the mind, and from it, everything else follows. I think, I feel, I do. But here's the problem. This I is not real. It's not something solid. It's just a mental construct, an idea that attaches itself to the body, the mind, and the personality. You assume this I is who you are. But let's look closer. The body? Just a collection of constantly changing cells. The mind? A stream of thoughts, appearing and disappearing like clouds. And memory? It feels like continuity, but it's just flickering moments, held together by belief. So if the body isn't you, if the mind isn't you, if even your thoughts and memories aren't you, then who or what are you? You've been looking for yourself your whole life. And yet, every time you search, it slips through your fingers. The more you search, the more you realize there's nothing there. And this leads to a shocking realization. The I you've believed in your whole life, the I that feels separate, limited, trapped, was never real to begin with. So then, what is this I that we've spent our entire lives believing in? This is where the illusion begins to unravel. The ego, the personal I, is a master of disguise. It clings to thoughts, emotions, and experiences, weaving a complex story of individuality. But the moment you question its nature, something strange happens. It starts to unravel. This I that you've taken for granted is nothing more than a thought that claims ownership, a thought that says, this is me, this is my life, these are my problems. But what happens when you turn your attention inward and try to find this I? You realize it's not there. The body is perceived, the mind is perceived, even the thought I am is perceived. So, who or what is perceiving it all? Self-inquiry is not about replacing one belief with another. It's about going straight to the root. Because when you do, the entire illusion begins to collapse. Everything you've identified with, the struggles, the desires, the fears, they were never yours. They belonged to a character that never really existed. The moment you start asking, who am I? Something shifts. At first, the mind jumps in with answers. I am this body. I am these thoughts. I am my past. But if you look deeper, you start to see the cracks. Where exactly is this I? Is it in the hands that move, the voice that speaks, the memories that replay in your mind? Every time you search for it, it slips through your fingers, like a shadow exposed to light. And then a realization dawns. The I you've been looking for was never there to begin with. This is the power of self-inquiry. It doesn't give you a new identity. It strips away the false one. And when the I dissolves, what's left? Not a blank void, but something alive. A presence that has always been there, untouched by thoughts, untouched by time. When the false I dissolves, what remains? At first, the mind panics. It tries to grasp onto something, some sense of identity, some sense of control. But the deeper you go, the more obvious it becomes. There was never anything to hold on to. And yet, something is still here. Not a thought, not a belief, not a feeling. Something silent, something unchanging. This is you, not as a person, not as a name, not as a story, but as pure being. This presence was here before you had a body, before you had a mind, before you even knew the word I. Words like self, awareness, or consciousness try to point to it, but the truth is, it's beyond words. It's not something you can learn, not something you can achieve. It's what you've always been. As self-inquiry deepens, something strange happens. The thoughts that once seemed so loud start to fade. The emotions that once pulled you in lose their grip. Even the stories you've told yourself about who you are begin to crumble. Why? Because every single one of them was tied to the personal I. And when that I is questioned, when it is seen for what it truly is, just a thought, just a movement of the mind, it loses its power. What remains is not emptiness, not a void, but stillness, a quiet presence that has always been here, watching. No longer trapped in an identity, no longer weighed down by a false self, just being. Some call it nirvana, some call it liberation, some call it the absolute. But in truth, it has no name. It's not something you attain. It's what you already are. When the personal I disappears, what's left isn't something new. It was always here, silent, unchanging, aware. But before, it was buried, hidden beneath layers of thoughts, beliefs, and conditioning. Now, with the illusion gone, what remains is pure awareness. And here is where it all comes together. This awareness never comes and goes. It's not a temporary experience. It's not a special state you enter. It's the background of everything. Whether you're thinking or not thinking, whether you're happy or sad, whether you're awake or asleep, this presence remains, always. It was here before the body. It will be here after the body. It's not inside you. It is you. For many, this realization feels both liberating and unsettling. The mind is so used to being someone, having a story, an identity, a sense of control. So when the personal I begins to dissolve, there can be a moment of fear. If I am not this mind, this body, this story, then what am I? But here's the mistake. This isn't about losing something. It's about seeing clearly what was never real to begin with. Another common trap? Trying to turn this into an idea. Many seekers hear, "You are pure awareness," and they try to understand it intellectually. But the real self is not a concept. It's not something to believe. It's not something to grasp. It's something to see, directly. And lastly, There's the danger of turning self-inquiry into a mental exercise. Some people repeat, "Who am I?" like a mantra, hoping for an answer. But this isn't about coming to a conclusion. It's about dismantling every assumption you've ever had. Because when all assumptions fall away, what remains is undeniable. As self-inquiry deepens, something shifts. The personal I, the one tied to a name, a history, a set of beliefs, fades away. But something remains, something undeniable, the simple sense of being. I am, not I am this or I am that, just I am. This is the purest form of consciousness, before identity, before labels, before thought. And if you stay with this, even the sense of I am dissolves into silence. What remains is not something that can be explained, not something that can be known as an object. It just is. The search is over, not because you found something new, but because you've recognized what was never missing. The inquiry into who am I doesn't lead to an answer. It leads to the end of the one who was asking. When the false I is seen through, the search stops, the struggle stops, the suffering born of separation vanishes, and what remains? Not a void, not nothingness, but everything, whole, undivided, free. The realization is simple. There was never a separate self to begin with. The one who struggled, the one who sought enlightenment, the one who thought they needed to be free, was only an illusion. And in the absence of that illusion, what is left? Truth itself, beyond the mind, beyond form, beyond any need to define it. And now, it's your turn. Don't just listen to these words. Don't just think about them. Close your eyes, feel into it, right now, and most importantly, notice the awareness that is already here, because that's you. It always has been, and it always will be. There's nothing to attain, nothing to achieve, no final step to take. Just notice, right now. The question is, are you awake, or are you still dreaming?